name's Jamie. I'm based out of Miami. Go by Immersioneers. Everyone talks about being an engineer. No, I'm creating immersive experiences using augmented reality and virtual reality. So I go by Immersioneer. Feel free to use it, right? Been in AR and VR for almost 12 plus years. I really believe AR is really going to change the way we all live fundamentally in the near future. And I really believe in Niantic Lightship and VPS is definitely the tools that they have will help you to maybe be that innovator to help bring AR to the masses. Nice to be here and looking forward to talking with you all later. I'll pass it to my friend Tyler.
Thanks, Jamie. My name's Tyler. I'm currently a senior at the School of Cinematic Arts here at USC in Los Angeles. I'm in a program called Media Arts in Practice that it's really cool. We specialize in immersive media here. So I help run a lab that the Mobile Environmental Media Lab, that little mirroring that little logo up there. And a project we've been working on for the last couple of years is the one I'll be sharing with you here in a second, the Chinatown AR experience. Yeah, excited to talk more about it.
You want me to go ahead and dive in, Pablo?
Go ahead, Jamie. Yeah, sorry. I didn't unmute myself there. We'll go ahead and get started now.
All right. We're going to go through a couple of the projects, the VPS projects that I've done. This actually was in Lightship like 1.0, where you only could do one VPS location. And I wanted to innovate and say I want to do more than one VPS location. So I incorporated, everyone loves South Beach. So when LeBron James came to Miami, he was like, I'm taking my talents to South Beach, not Miami, right? So these are actually the South Beach lifeguard towers. They're Art Deco style. And whenever people come to South Beach, they take pictures with them. I wanted to create, we also have a bunch of events at South Beach, like the South Beach Food Network, Food and Wine Festival, a bunch of other different things. So I wanted to take these towers and create an immersive story where you had to visit all of the towers and interact with them. And if you look, you can see I'm using AR, but I'm actually using the actual location. So on the left where you see the blue lifeguard tower, you pick up an AR screwdriver and you unscrew that actual surfing sign. And when you do, it pops out. So when you're thinking about VPS locations, yes, Pokemon Go pops up stuff at locations, but how can you interact with that actual waypoint? How can you interact with that actual object? Things that are there, like unscrewing a bolt, or those type of things. And you can see the other kind of experiences. You had to go throughout, walk South Beach, interact with all these different things, and you got different clues, and then you kind of solved the case. So that was the first experience, which was basically games. Everyone loves games, but I'm more on real world AR, but this was showing you how you can incorporate games with VPS. Yeah. How did I get around using wait? You want me to answer now or wait?
Yeah, I'm very curious. You mentioned that at the top of this.
So originally they had where it was one way spot. So I had to write a script that pretty much kept track of using that, and Lightship Maps came out at the time. So pretty much based on Lightship Maps, I set a serializable class that says I'm currently at 5th Street Lifeguard Tower. And then once I was there, I pulled that localization waypoint and I scanned across. And I said, okay, I know you're here because I'm pulling up that scan. Once you completed the interaction, as unscrewing the surf sign and getting the clue, then I showed you the Lightship map and said, go to this next location. When you pressed I'm here, it pulled the second waypoint. So that might be the greenhouse lifeguard. I think that's 4th Street Lifeguard Tower. And then kind of a beach pop-up cleanup came up, and then you found a key and you kind of unlocked that. So I use Lightship Maps as the in-between. Once you said I'm here, then I pulled the one location, localized, did my experience, used the map to go to the next location. So it was a kind of a way to work around. Back at that time, there was only one way to kind of do that. Does that help, Pablo?
Yeah, that's
cool.
awesome. Thank you.
This was a slide on just the goals. Just take advantage of all of the traffic that comes to South Beach, actually getting them moving and active, but really focusing. A lot of AR is just let's pop up something and it's cool, but like real world location based AR, which VPS is take that existing structure and interact with it. So all of these experiences, we're trying to do something that's real on that structure, on that waypoint, and interacting kind of with it. The other goal was, since all those events came, you could change out the experience. So it might be the Food and Wine Festival here, it might be the film festival next week, and you can change this interactive story and then get sponsorships tied into it, and just tell more about the event to kind of expose people, not to just come from the event, but the history of it and those type of things. This was live event VPS. So I wanted, we had Miami Hack Week. It actually happened 2 weeks ago. Well, last year, I wanted to see how easy it would be to install a VPS activation during a live event. So the event starts on Sunday, it ends on Sunday. How fast could I spin up a VPS activated location? I used some of the things, like you can see the screwdriver here, to unscrew certain things. So some of it was pre-built, but going in, scanning locations, private locations, uploading those, and it took about 2 days. So this was just a quick and easy, let's see, at a live event, a live conference, a live anything, could you create a VPS actual entertainment for the attendees and make it live? And you can see, again, trying to interact with real world objects in the way they are supposed to. So on the left, you can see there's a stove and I have an AR fire. So you have to find the extinguisher and actually put out the fire, and then you get a clue. So like really taking into effect what that object normally operates or things on that object, and then adding the AR to interact with it in its natural way. The goal for that one, I just kind of explained it. Just seeing how fast I could spin up a VPS location during a live event. And it took about 2 days to do. You all have, what is it, 3 months, Pablo, right? 2 months for the VPS? 2 months. So you got 2 months to do it. So it can be done really, really fast. So we should have some really great VPS submissions at the end of the contest. Hey, Sonia, you're not late. We just started. I see you in the chat. All right, this was, again, I'm more about real world VR and incorporating other things. This was just health. So our Miami Beach boardwalk used to be all wood, and then they redid it with this nice kind of walking thing. It's actually 7 miles long. So this was trying to get people, you can see people ride their bikes on it, they rollerblade and skate, using these unique center points, each like 33rd Street, 37th Street, all the way down. They have these center points. It's a unique object. So once you come here, creating unique activities for people to get out there and walk 7 miles and not realize they're walking 7 miles, because they're kind of integrated into this story of what's going on. And you can move forward. Whoops. What's that? Oh, next slide, Pablo. Cool. Yeah, there. I just mentioned it. Pretty much getting people to exercise without knowing they're exercising, because they're kind of involved in this immersive story, walking the newly renovated Miami Beach boardwalk. And here's my World Impact VPS. We're living in Miami. We're subject to climate change. So sea level is rising, and supposedly 100 years from now, Miami will be underwater. So I wanted to use VPS, and I used AI, ChatGPT, as the response. I wanted to really build Iron Man Jarvis. So in Iron Man, they have Jarvis like the hologram that you could talk to it, and it responds back and it shows you things. So that was the goal, but using Jarvis in a climate change way. You can see on the left side, that is showing someone in their home what their elevation of sea level would be 100 years from now. And that was really to make it immersive and impact them. They're like, yeah, so what, sea level rises. But when you see it in your home, then you suggest, hey, we should do XYZ. That kind of drives it a lot closer to your heart. The other thing you can see down, there's my little Jarvis guy talking. You can ask it questions. And the point of that was going to certain locations and these activations happening for you. There's the resident artist in Miami, Xavier Cotada, which we're working with. He's building at every park in Miami. He's putting a statue. He's an artist. He's making a climate statue of the elevation at that park. So the goal is when all of those are installed, then people can go there, look at this elevation statue. It'll be a VPS way spot, and this activation will kind of come up and kind of inform people. So this was how you can drive VPS and world impact, those type of things. And yep, I just kind of told you everything about this. Those were the goals. And last, this is what I'm really excited about and doing a lot of work in right now in the AEC space. So AEC is architecture, engineering, and construction. Everything that's built, all the departments of transportation, all the government, all that stuff, the Infrastructure Reduction Act. Again, I'm more about real world AR. So JMT, I'm working with them to incorporate VPS and AR at live locations. So for example, this, you can see there is a parking garage at an airport where that might be thinking about putting a hotel and what it would look like. So using VPS, we're able to scan and they could see what just this model of what would be the sight lines, because when you're dealing at airports and stuff like that, the airways and where you can see and what planes obstructs things is very highly regulated. So being able to use VPS at a certain location, show the actual building, and be able to move around and see those sight lines can help with planning and seeing if this placement of a hotel would actually work. There's a lot of other instances with VPS in the AEC space that are not here, like for bridge inspection. When they go to the bridge, they have to do checks, they have to do crack lines, they have to do so many things, and it's very, very, let's just say old school. So they're writing everything down, but using a VPS activation point, because we know this bridge, we know this certain activation, all the information from the past can kind of be brought in. So that's how I'm trying to use VPS and AR to actually help impact the construction, architecture, and engineering space.
One quick question for you, Jamie, just because I can't ask questions in the Q&A. Regarding this particular site, this building is really big. Did you have any issues with scanning for such a vast experience?
Yeah, so like you have to focus in on something unique in the thing. I didn't scan the whole parking garage, right? So scanning a certain area of the parking garage and knowing I localized there. And that kind of brings up a point when you're doing VPS. I think I put it in like my suggestions. Using Lightship maps and integrating that is the way to get people where you want them to go. Because you wouldn't want someone with their phone walking the entire parking garage and like, yeah, this thing doesn't work. This doesn't work. Why is this not working, right? But using Lightship maps, and what I do is I have Lightship map. I'll show you where you are. And then I take a picture of what I want you to go look at. And then as you're scanning it, it's showing you what you should look at. And that kind of helps think about UX UI as well when you're creating these experiences. I know we don't, but like really guiding people exactly to where you want. That way their experience is a lot better.
Gotcha. And I think this kind of answers Jason's question as well, but essentially he's asking, how was VPS used when the buildings being placed don't exist yet? So I think you were saying that you scanned to the parking structure, right? Correct.
Yeah, these are just models of potential buildings that could go there. So it's great for if they don't know what the final building will look like. Okay, we have 3 things, but how is it going to obstruct these different things? So we're kind of able to do that. It's also great for working in this space. It was in Texas. There was a bond coming up where they wanted to build a new community building. But you have to vote on it and all this type of stuff. Well, we pitched it. I didn't build it yet. To be able to go to that location where it is with a VPS way spot and actually show the building. Having the community come out, go to that spot, see the building, walk around the building, interact with the building, see the value of the building before anything's built will help them to want to vote for the bond so they can get the money to actually build the building. So like taking real world locations and using AR in a way to enhance what we already do and making immersive experiences is, I think, is kind of like the home run.
I think you kind of went through this too.
Yeah, sorry, I talk too much.
Oh, good.
These are the kind of just some quick best practices. I kind of led to it at the beginning. Think about the uniqueness of the way spot. Don't just put AR in front of a building and have, what is unique about this suck? Is it historical? Can you unscrew something? Can you turn something on? Is it a light switch on the actual building? And have them interact. That kind of blends the realities, right? You're using something real in AR to do an immersive experience. Create multiple way spots, definitely for this upcoming challenge. Like, it's great to have one, but push yourself. When we couldn't do it before, like, I was like, I'm going to make a multiple way spot experience. Now it's easier to do on with Lightship 3.0. So it's not as difficult. Definitely push yourself, try to do some of those. When building these experiences, a lot of people say, oh, I'm gonna have to go camp out at the beach. Did you camp out at the beach all day? Yeah, no, it's pretty hot down here. What I would say is definitely use remote auth and playback. So those features, you can actually scan with playback your actual location, take it back home, get your viewport, pull it down from the geospatial browser, build everything at home, like rapidly prototype, then go out there and test it. And then you can tweak on site. So I wouldn't say you don't have to build all on site. If you utilize remote auth and playback with your way spots, it will make you rapidly build most of the features and then go out there, spend 2-3 days, and you can really get a good experience. I think I got one more slide with some best practices. I mentioned searching the geospatial browser. The other thing, scanning waypoints. So when you search the geospatial browser, you might say, oh, I want this point. It might already be there. So when I first started, there weren't a lot of way spots in Miami. So I had to go activate Miami kind of and just do a bunch of spots. But when I was doing that, like 3 years ago, I would go and create a spot, and then they didn't kind of have that geospatial browser, which is so great now. And then I would go and submit it, and it was already there. So definitely before you think about your way spots, search the geospatial browser in your Lightship Dev account or your 8th Wall account. See what's there, and then you can already leverage what's there and build an experience around these actual VPS activated spots. If you don't, and you want to do something at a spot that doesn't have a way spot, then you got to do the 5 scans. And that's what my second point is. Scan multiple times throughout the day, because if it's cloudy on one day or in the morning, there's less light than the afternoon, definitely if you're creating a new way spot, do multiple scans. That's the real challenge for us with global clients. Building on current way spots will make life so, yes, building with current way spots will definitely make your life. The other thing, the last 2 points, is use multi-user experiences. So I have the Apple Vision Pro, and one of the things that people talk about is like, oh, it's a solo experience. We're not solo people, right? So build multiple shared VPS experiences. That way, I mean, that's just how we operate, right? And then lastly is using semantic segmentation and other Niantic tools together with VPS really makes it really functional. Semantic segmentation, so on the beach, you saw that they have where it identifies sand. So one of the parts in the AR detective experience was look at the sand, and when you did, you had to do something with that. Or look at the sky, or look at the grass. And even with Lightship 3. The latest, they have object detection. So think about incorporating objects into your VPS experience. At this location, do this. Now I want you to go find this object in XYZ. So that's me talking too much. I'm going to pass it on, I think, to Tyler, right?
Yep, correct. Yeah, thank you, Jamie. You did not talk too much. That was perfect. We're gonna go ahead and Tyler, I think we have a video first to present, and then we'll get into it.
I can't hear any audio, but it's just music, so I can just narrate.
It's not just music, and I want to make sure everyone can hear it. So let's restart. Oops, I'm sharing you all my crazy amount of tabs. Let's not do that. Share sound. Here we go. Okay, I'm gonna just go back a little bit because this part's really cool.
Oh yeah, I do want
So
to hear.
this is Union Station. In October 1935, the first 30-day notice was served to vacate Chinatown. It was right here.
It's completely changed. 6 years I've been gone and I could barely recognize it all.
Thank you guys. Thank you a lot. Um, yeah, I put this slide next just to say thank you for the other people that really helped make this project possible. As you can tell, there's a lot of history involved, and we really wanted to get that history right. So Chinese Historical Society, the Huntington Institute. I'll get into how this project started in the next slide. Yeah, so the basic goal is uh, we had this amazing collection of photographs of the original Chinatown in LA. And the reason this needs to be a VPS project is because the original Chinatown is completely gone. It was demolished to make room for Union Station, kind of Los Angeles's Grand Central Station. That happened in the 1930s. And a lot of the history kind of only lived on through oral traditions, and there were collections of photos, but it was bits and pieces. And then a few years ago, the Huntington Institute, a historical institute here in LA, stumbled upon this huge archive they had just like in a attic of theirs, and it was 140 plus photos of the original Chinatown. Very detailed, almost like imagine 1930s Google Street View. Ironically, the photos were probably taken by or paid for by the landowners to basically like assay their properties before everything was demolished. But obviously, we wanted to make a better use of those photos. So we went on a mission of trying to, with basically zero geographic waypoints currently, to try to figure out where these buildings originally were, where the streets were. And then finally, we're like, well, how are we going to bring this into reality? And we discovered eighth wall VPS. So we'll get into it. This is just a screenshot, but you get the idea. It's a slider that kind of shows an aerial photo. It was actually taken from a blimp in the late 1920s on the left side, which is Chinatown, and then you can see on the right the current Union Station. So there are still our two major landmarks was Alameda Street, kind of the main street down the center there, and then Los Angeles Street going down from the corner. And then down at the bottom, you can see, gosh, I'm at a loss of words, but you can see what was there. And this is how we started kind of putting everything together. Next slide, thanks. This was our first kind of street that we started putting together, which was Marchesalt Street. It was kind of the main thoroughfare of Chinatown. Then over in the corner in yellow was Union Station. So yeah, we were basically just slowly lining them up with the collection. And right in the middle there, that green photograph is Manjanlo, which was a popular restaurant in the neighborhood that actually still exists today in a new form in the current Chinatown. And we had a lot of help from the Lee family that still to this day owns the restaurant. So that was kind of where we're like, okay, that's where we're going to start, and we'll move out from there. And yeah, so of course, the main goal is to make this experience as accessible as possible. We started with Unity and Lightship through Unity, but we realized, a lot of people are just coming through a train station. And how many people are going to download a huge, super heavy app? Not a lot. A lot of people probably don't have unlimited data. And so it didn't make sense. And when we started the project, Eighth Wall, or at least the historical part of the project, like it wasn't even part of Niantic yet. So we built it out in Unity and it was working, but it was, the app part was, just a huge hurdle. So once VPS and VPS maps and everything got incorporated in Eighth Wall, we're like, okay, we're switching over. This is the platform. Anyone could get on here, and that's where we're at. Yeah, so VPS, high geographic precision to the original locations. We don't have the original markers anymore, but through all that mapping, we did our best. You can see all those little pins there to locate the photos. And then in the next slide, I think you'll see, where we marked them. So these are our pairs for our initial portals we've made. On the top right is Manjanlo, that restaurant, which lined up quite well with this kind of courtyard area in front of the station and that sundial there at the bottom of the photo. And the top left was a store owned by the Suhu family, who also have helped us in this project. They're still here in LA. And we anchored it to this wayfinding sign, which is a huge part of what I'll talk about helping with VPS recommendations. And then in the bottom inside the station is this information booth that connects to Peacock Alley, which was this little alleyway that a lot of kids hung out at back in the day in Chinatown. So from there, I'll just get right into the VPS best practices. Each of these I have their own slide for, so I think, we can just keep going. Starting with scanning a wide swath. So my first mistake when I made a wayspot was making a really nice detailed scan of that little sundial in the center and being very confused why all of my objects were flying all over the place. And Ian from Eighth Wall let me know that, since it's positioning on the sundial itself, the sundial is a perfectly symmetrical object. So VPS doesn't really know. It's going to see the object and it'll scan it and recognize it very quickly, but it doesn't really know the orientation. So it's really important to include in your scan non-symmetrical shapes. VPS can recognize patterns on the floor. So we obviously made sure to get all of these tiles, which were a bit more imprecise and Of course, the bushes, the Union Station areas is all very symmetrical. So this has been a huge a huge challenge of just figuring out how to, get asymmetry in our waypoints. So here, even though we're telling the user to just focus on the sundial, VPS is going to see everything around it. It sees the walls, the bushes. So get all of that. And like get close. So get far away from your center object. Get the details that you think are going to let VPS know this is my orientation. Yeah. So yeah, this just leads into the next one. So I created a way spot using this Union Station entrance pillar and did include objects down on the ground that are asymmetrical, but VPS is very quick and recognizes objects very quickly. So, my photo in the way spot is this photo here, essentially. And so users were coming up and scanning up on the pillar, but VPS is recognizing it before, it doesn't see the ground. So it was also having that orientation issue. So if you are using an object that's very vertical, make sure that you're guiding the user to not necessarily just scan near the top of the object. You got to get ground to make sure, like if it's important for your objects to be specifically oriented somewhere around the object. So yeah, don't use sky, or like at least have a good bit of ground. And so after a while, we just realized the pillar's not going to work. I need to make a new way spot. So I just moved it just down and found this far more asymmetrical and great for orienting way spot sign right next to it. So, and that's been working great. And here's another one that I definitely didn't think about when I first started making way spots. One, make sure your object is in a safe location, of course. But when you think about safety, you can't just think about the whole swath of a week. We're in a metro station. So sometimes a day it's very quiet. Other times a day it's super busy. And when I say awkward, people really don't like when you're holding a camera in their face. So you got to make sure both when you're scanning and thinking about the user, is this a place where we're not going to be violating people's privacy, or people are going to think their privacy is being violated? One of the way spots I made was right next to a bus stop, and there were people who got very uncomfortable when I was scanning. And it doesn't matter if you explain to them that this is a 3D scan and not a video and not going on YouTube. No one knows what that means. They just see a camera in your face. So yeah, just make sure, think about how your user is going to scan the object, and make sure that it's not going to make people uncomfortable, because your users are also not going to want to scan it if they think they're going to make other people uncomfortable. No one wants to either put a camera in their face or have a camera in their face. So that was my thought there. And yes, just like what Jamie was saying, really make it easy for them to find the object. If you're in a big public place and the QR code or however they're getting to your eighth wall experience isn't right next to the waypoint, or even if it is really right next to the waypoint, people get lost way easier than you're gonna assume. And you're probably far more knowledgeable of this area than your users are gonna be. So, we added kind of 2 layers. We have a map that shows, down in that map there, it says exhibit location. That's where they're scanning the QR code. And then, of course, the sundial location outside, adding kind of a secondary image as they're walking of what to expect where that VPS scanning location is. And that's helped a lot. And yeah, those are my points. I just want to say thank you again to both the rest of the team that helped on this project, and of course everyone at Eighth Wall. You guys have been so helpful in making this happen. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Tyler, for a great presentation and a lot of great tips. I myself hadn't thought about how, putting someone in that position of scanning a location that has people in it. So that's a great piece of advice to consider. We do have a couple questions from the audience, and I'd love to go to a few of those before we get into some of the questions that I had for both of you that are a little bit more generic. The first one is from Rocio in the chat. How long did it take to produce this specific project? And I know you talked about starting in Lightship, so walk us through that whole timeline.
This has been, yeah, so starting from when it was in Lightship, that was 3 years ago now. But we started working on we rebuilt it an eighth wall over this, it's a school project, so it's not like anyone was working full time, but over the last year, we've rebuilt it an eighth wall. And but like each of those individual portal experiences, we've really been pushing eighth wall to its limits, and receiving a lot of help along the way. So if it's been each of those portals now that we kind of have a rhythm for it, and I'd be happy if people want to talk more on the technical side of things, I'm on the eighth wall Slack. Could absolutely talk about it. But now that we're in a rhythm, we can put together one of those portals in a week or two.
Awesome. And I think one of the unique experiences within what you created is the actors that kind of come up and tell a story.
Yes.
Kyle, question, essentially asking, what was the process of bringing those individuals into the project?
Yeah, that was a huge endeavor too. We got very graciously a lot of help from a company called Metastage here in LA that does 3D scanning. And so this was like on a stage, with a huge dome. We worked with an actor and worked with they're representing like actual founding members of Chinatown. So we worked with the families themselves, and put together an outfit that was period piece for them. And then as far as getting them into the experience, I'll have to share like the actual link to our project, of course, but you don't have to be there to just like see the UI, but you can see kind of you can actually pop up the characters anywhere you want. So if you wanna test those out yourself, I don't think you need something as huge as Metastage to make like a 3D character work in your project. Like the apps are just getting so good, just the things you can do on your phone. But yeah, it was honestly on the eighth wall side very simple. It's very easy to bring in volumetric character and have them pop in. The size of the holograms, are you referring to like memory weight? That's a great question. Oh no, actually it's streaming in. We actually used a service called HoloStream. So the characters are being streamed. But I've seen people do it locally in other eighth wall projects, right? And they seem to get totally fine frame rates. So it doesn't have to be streamed. Ours were pretty high. Yeah, definitely pretty like high quality. So we went the streaming route. I honestly wouldn't recommend that. See if you can just get them small and local. It's way simpler.
Awesome. Cool. And then we had a question from Jason. This can be answered by either you, Jamie, or Tyler. Is how long did it take to get those scans publicly available?
Yeah, Jamie, you want to talk about your experience there?
Well, I had to activate Miami, so it took a lot longer. I mean, it was fun. So like, I'm on South Beach scanning these towers, but I would have to, like I said, scan in the morning, scan in the midday, scan in the afternoon. And that's when they required a lot more scans than they currently do. Definitely first start with geospatial browser, use something that's there. But if it's not, every city doesn't have activation points like Miami didn't at the time. So, I mean, it took some time. At the time, though, we were on kind of a super pilot. So I was able to scan stuff and work directly with Niantic to kind of get my activations up. I don't know what the current activation time would take from you scanning it. But literally, it's a 1 minute scan. You walk around your object to get as big of area as you can. That's just going to help you in the longer term. So let's say 5 minute scans of that, but 5 minutes times in the morning, in the midday, in the afternoon. So, I mean, it can take time, travel time to your place. Just trying to give you like a realistic expectation of what it kind of does. What about you, Tyler?
Yeah, the last way spot I built was that wayfinding sign I was talking about, and I think we got that up and running like within the week. And I also, correct me if I'm wrong, Pablo, but I believe you guys took away the requirement, like it
Yes.
doesn't have to be a publicly accessible way spot, right, to be used in a public project.
Yeah, you can actually start building pre it being a public way spot now. Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so you make that scan, you upload it, and you're good to go. Definitely make like Jamie said, make scans throughout the day because you will significantly improve your chance of your objects being placed well or just the scan going quick. Um, but yeah, you could get one up and running in a day if you wanted to.
And then one final question from Stin, who's asking, what's your experience with Android and VPS? For a recent project with VPS, I noticed it worked a lot better on iOS.
It is true. It's true. I think Android, there's so many different devices, so many different hardwares. People are using so many different browsers. Um, yeah, it's just that's the case for I think almost any mobile experience is iOS is just there's so many fewer technical options that you have to deal with, and it's usually going to be more streamlined. But it does work on Android. So just use as many devices as you can to test. Ask your friends to come, uh, you know, ask older people to come and see how it works.
Jamie, what about you on the Lightship side?
Um, yeah, I am an iOS everything, but I also have the Google Pixel because I have to, like, because of testing, like Tyler said, like you have to test for both platforms. You got to think about your target audience always, and it works. Niantic actually adds in tools and capabilities for Android, the Lightship side. So even phones that don't have LiDAR and all these things, with the latest Lightship, using Unity, it actually gives that capability to Android phones. So like Niantic knows there's an issue there, and they're building in those tools for you kind of do it. To also piggyback on something Tyler just mentioned, with your target audience, like you are the expert. You built this experience, right? So you know exactly where to go and localize. And you're like, oh yeah, it's going to work. But get some of your friends, get some of your family, and just say, hey, I want you to try my experience, because then you'll see how they actually use it, how real people actually will use it. They might not go right there. They might go to the left side. And you're like, no, 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 go to the right. So when you're doing that for your target user, once you have your experience built, you're the expert, you know how it works. Call some friends up, buy them a $5 Little Caesars pizza and say, hey, I'll give you some pizza if you go out here and try my experience. And just observe. Don't direct them. Observe how they do it. And you're going to get so many. What I do is I sit back and I just take notes. Okay, most people went here, most people went here. And then I go back and change it. And then I ask them to come back in another 2 weeks once I've made some changes and see if they did the same thing and if it improved the experience. So for testing, which we didn't really mention here, yes, you test yourself, but also give it to people who've never used your experience to see how regular users will activate with the way spots.
You'll be amazed how fast people can just break it.
Yeah.
Ways you would never have guessed.
One final question from Kyle is, was this built using Three.js or A-Frame?
Ours on A-frame.
All right, so now let's get into some questions for both Tyler and Jamie that I prepared here, just to kind of get the conversation going a little bit more on some of the things that they faced while building with VPS. So first and foremost, I know you've kind of had a variety of different experiences, Jamie, but what would you say was the biggest challenge you faced when building with VPS, and how did you solve for it? You can't use the "there was only one way spot available" answer.
Um, I think getting the way spot up originally because it was so much harder.
Mm.
But now it's a lot easier to do. So that was the biggest challenge at the time. It's just trying to get up all these way spots to try to do different things. But again, it's simplified. The, I mean, also at the time is I had to go build on site because there was no remote auth. There was no playback, right? So it was like in a beta, but the beta was working, but not great. So like it was a challenge because you have to go to this site pretty much with your laptop. I had a portable battery charger and I'm building and then testing, building and testing. So Niantic took a lot of our feedback and like they made it super, super easy. So that was my biggest challenge, but that's not currently a challenge because if you use all the integrations, it's a lot easier.
Alrighty. And Tyler, what about yourself? I'm sorry, I was in the middle of typing a comment. For those of you that have questions about scanning or have had issues with scanning in the past, we had a really great event just 2 weeks ago with some of the team members on the mapping side of here in Niantic. And they went through a very detailed walkthrough of using the Wayfarer app, using the geospatial browser, checking activation statuses, and what you can do in order to streamline that process. So I strongly recommend watching that replay. There are also some tips about how you can accidentally scan something and it doesn't get associated with the location that you want it to. So making sure to review that before going out to scan would be a great thing to do for you, for everyone prior to building. But yeah, Tyler, what was your experience like?
I think kind of just staying on what we were talking about earlier is user experience. This technology is still so new to most people. I think I've explained this project to my parents like 10 times, and every single time I explain it, I have to like re-explain what's augmented? What? Like it's very foreign. And so, all of us here obviously are like in the top 0.001% of like the tech world that like this is a native conversation. And for everyone else, they don't know what's going on, and so it's our job to teach them that. And so part of why this project has taken so long is it's just continually trying things and seeing if it's intuitive for people to use. So really making sure every step of the way you find a friend or someone to be like, try this out, or does this make sense? And it'll make your life so much easier. Because if you don't do that and you get all the way to, launch and you haven't like really user tests, and I've been there and it's just like people don't even know what to do like for the first step. So yeah, UX, this is a new world, and we're kind of in the fun but very difficult position of helping teach it and make it happen. Oh, I think you're muted.
It's bound to happen at least once every single event. Um,
Always.
And one kind of like follow up to that, but pretty much like a question we get asked a lot is how do you decide to use VPS versus something as simple as like image targets, for example? What was the ultimate like deciding factor for both of you in your experiences that you've built?
Go ahead, Tyler. Y'all went first last. I'm following you.
Sounds good. Well, ours is in a public space. We couldn't rely on image targets, and as nice and helpful as Metro and Union Station were, they weren't going to let us just pop up QR codes wherever we wanted or images, and so yeah, there were something we thought about that at the beginning, like using certain patterns on the walls as image targets, but landmarks are landmarks. We call them that for a reason. They will be there. They are consistent. So that's the main reason. If you can use image targets, honestly, do that first. Like make your life simple. And like, but once you're at the stage of VPS, it is great because there is a magic of just being able to hold up your phone and somehow like, yeah, it just knows what's around you and puts stuff on top of it. So yeah, that's right.
For me, is about the location. I'm all about real world, right? AR.
Yeah.
So an image target, yeah, I can put things at different locations, but I want to interact with that landmark, as Tyler kind of said. I want you to unscrew this part of this thing, or I want you to go and look through this hole with a AR thing. So VPS is definitely the way to go because I know you're at this location and I have a scan of this location. So really the scans, when I do them or when I look at them, that kind of drives, okay, how am I going to interact with this real world thing? It's not interacting with an image target. How am I going to actually interact with this real world thing in a way that's natural for the user? So it's all about VPS. I have used image targets for some of the stuff in the AEC space where they might have, for example, I talked about the community meetings that all your cities and municipalities do. So they'll say, here's a floor plan of what we're going to build. And that floor plan looks like nothing to them. So I've used image targets where that floor plan with their regular phone, it becomes 3D and they actually can see it. And they like, because people don't understand architecture talk, right? Or this, I don't know, it looks like a box, but when you actually make it come to life. So I've used image targets, but VPS is definitely the way to go. But like Tarla said, start with image targets if you're new to this, and then kind of graduate to the VPS.
Yeah, we have one question come in, and we'll do this last question from Sahil, who is looking to get started with 8th Wall. And I think this might be great for you to answer, Tyler, as you transition from Lightship to 8th Wall. Now I'm getting them both mixed up. Is what pointers would you recommend for someone that's just getting started?
Well, if you have experience with 3JS, that's a great start. A-frame's just really different syntax, and you can still use 3JS and 8th Wall for many things. But as far as getting started, like get into one of those example projects. Like just scroll through. There's so many projects you can clone that 8th Wall has put together themselves and other people's projects. Yeah, just start cloning projects that you think look cool and build off of those.
Yeah, that's kind of where we always start with recommendations is this, there's a vast variety of sample projects and modules now that you can build with. So you can definitely just learn to break it, as Jamie said, and then fix it.
Yeah, we've used a lot of them in ours for sure.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys both so much for joining in.